All right, what's up, guys? We're over here at DRT Racing with Rafael Estevez, and we just released our t-shirt collab with Eat, Sleep, Race. It's the OG New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania streets, and we're talking about Hunts Point, and none other than Ralphy could tell us a little history about what went down at Hunts Point. So, I guess, what years were you out there?
Well, I've been out street racing since the early middle '80s, 85, 86, 87. Those were good years for me. Going to Hunts Point had like different places. It was just not only one place in Hunts Point where we raced. And Fountain Avenue, we used to go there on Sundays on the afternoon, mostly afternoon racing.
And you're talking about the late 80s.
Oh yeah, this is like 85, 86.
And like Hunts Point started, what year do you think like it was at its height? Like when the most people were racing?
It's hard to say because let's say it's different eras with different cars. Like the 80 eras was about the 1.8 Toyota Corollas and the rotary fight. And then in the 90s on, that's when the Honda scene and the turbo scene came out. So everything changed. It was, 80s was all motor cars, Toyotas versus rotary. That was the big rivalry, mostly like the R100s, the RX2s, the 1.8, the Toyota Corollas. That was the hype of the 80s. And then in the 90s and the 2000s, it actually evolved, it changed. But it's like a new generation kept coming in.
And what's crazier is, so you were there in the 80s and through the 90s, early 2000s, you were still out there seeing the transition yourself.
Yeah, correct. I wasn't racing as much in the 2000, but I had a worker of mine, Booger. Shorty, we used to call him Shorty. He used to go out there a lot, and he always just wanted me to go there in the late 2000s and late 90s, and I wasn't really interested at that time. It was a whole different era. Like, I say that in the 80s, we mostly went there and we did what we had to do. We raced. The late 90s, it was a lot of talk, mostly more talk than racing. So
and more people just hanging out.
Correct, more people hanging out and more of the, just talking before a race. Take 3 hours to do one race. No.
So what's cool is the 80s, you're going to say, is like the OG generation, like just raw racing. People just went there to do the thing, get paid, and that's it.
Yeah, that's mainly what it was. And in those days too, the law was a lot different. You get caught racing, and if you had insurance, registration, and your license, you were okay. They'll let you go. While in the late 90s, they will take your car. They will do all sorts of things. The only difference is in the 80s, nobody had plates or registrations. It was just you slap a plate on the car and just go out and drive. That's the way.
Because they couldn't look it up.
Yeah, that's the way. It wasn't no computers, none of that stuff. So it was a lot different in a way. Plus, they just used to put like a tow hook on a car and just tow it with your regular car. That was it. You put a tow bar on it. That was your race car. There was no trailer. There was none of that stuff. You just put a tow bar in it and let's go to Hunts Point. Let's go to Fountain Avenue. That's the way it was.
So if you guys just joining in, this is the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania OG street shirt collaboration we just did with Eat, Sleep, Race. If you're trying to cop this shirt, it's available now on eatsleeprace.com. So Ralphie, would you say, for those who don't know, I know, that the movie and this whole series of Fast and Furious was based off of a story that, an article from Vibe magazine. Actually, it's crazy. The article is right here, right?
That's the actual article there.
This is the article right here.
This is the date.
May 1998, and it's about Ralphie. This article is called Racer X. And Ralphie, if I'm not mistaken, this is a article Vibe interviewed you about street racing in New York.
Yes. That's when I used to run. Basically, we used to run also the mile run down in the West Side Highway. So that's mostly what that story is about, because that was in the late 90s.
So when I tell people we're talking to the OG of street racing, Fast and Furious was originally, the first one was about street racing, and they based that movie off of this article that you, what do you say? You didn't write it, but the article was about you in Vibe magazine back in '98.
Yeah, a lot of people don't believe it, so they end up either Googling me or Googling my name, and once they do that, it's like so much stuff pops up on my name. I mean, the article's been translated to every language there is, Spanish, Russian, you name it. You can look it up and it'll be in every language. It's crazy.
You know what's crazy? We were just watching a video on Facebook. It had a couple million views, and it was about Fast and Furious. Some big car page on Facebook did a video about like the history of Fast and Furious, and in the first 30 seconds, it's this picture right here. It says Fast and Furious was based off a story of a New York street racer, Ralphy Estevez.
Yeah.
Hey, they owe you a check. The biggest series in Hollywood is based off of this guy sitting right here. New York street racing. So Hunts Point, like you said, you know, there was that transition period. And I want to say maybe like the story that they're depicting and the scene that they're, you know, exaggerating in Fast and Furious was more based off of the late 90s scene, right?
Correct. Like in the movie, there are certain scenes I can point them out because I knew before they did the scenes and I spoke about it with them. Like the scene where when he comes with the RX-7 and he parks in a garage and walks out after a chase.
That's Vin Diesel.
Yeah, that was something that really happened to me on the 300CX. I got chased by the cops all over Manhattan, and I had to run around, and I actually went into a parking lot, parked the car, walked down, let the car park there for a whole week. Wow. I didn't even move it.
So did they, like when they were writing this movie, did they like, were they asking you like some behind like stories, and then you picked up on it like, man, I told them these things and they actually used it?
You know, the original movie was supposed to be filmed in New York.
No way.
Most people don't know this. Yeah, it was supposed to be filmed in New York, and then last minute they switched it over and they just did it in California. But they did send writers over here, and I drove them around, and we went to a couple of different spots, and I showed them the way it's done here in the East Coast. And to tell you the truth, that particular writer wrote to me, is one of the best scenes in the movie, most realistic scene in the movie, which is when they get to the first meet and all the cars are hanging out and all that. He wrote that part of the story. And that's because he saw that here in New York when I took him around. And to me, that was like very realistic scene, like about street racing.
That's pretty dope. So, being that you experienced the 80s generation, the 90s generation, and what year when did Hunts Point end? Like, obviously towards the early 2000s, the cops started cracking down on it.
Yeah,
when did that scene end?
I think about 2004, around there, 2004, 2003, maybe.
And that's really, I think, the end of like all these popular streets right here, like Ave P, Fountain Ave. It was around those years that the cops in the tri-state just weren't having it no more, and they actually started task forces just for street racing. Yeah, and like you said, they were impounding cars and it was really scaring people away.
And mostly because of spectators. Because spectators will get in the way, then the accidents will happen, and then you got people getting hurt. That's mostly what it is. Because the racing, it's hard, like even for a guy in a car to get hurt. You know what I mean? But it's usually a spectator, and that's when it create all the problems. So.
And that's honestly the reason why people do like street racing too, because there's that risk to it as well. So while we're talking about that, what's the craziest experience you ever had at Hunts Point or Fountain Ave?
Well, they mostly do it also for the adrenaline. Remember, they're young. It's like me. I wouldn't go out there and race anymore. That's it. I'm old. I'm old. But like I always said this, there's always going to be the next generation. And the next generation is going to be 15, 16-year-old. He don't care. He just wants excitement.
Well, you just said it yourself. You were street racing back in the 80s, so let it be known, it's 2018 right now. that just show your age, but letting people know like this is history right here. So, what is the craziest thing you've seen at Hunts Point? Like the biggest money race or anything like wild happened that's worth mentioning?
Well, that's also a different between the times. In the 80s, a big race was a $500 race, $200 race. But then again, money was worth more than what it is now.
Yeah.
But and now you see $50,000 races, $20,000 races, which is crazy. But that's really what it's gotten to.
So I don't know. Have you ever been to AVP before in Newark? So AVP, for those who don't know, AVP is Newark, New Jersey, and I don't know if Ralphie's ever been there. Back when it was popping.
No, FP I never been to. I actually been to and raced here in Newark in Route 19.
Oh, so 1 and 9 was on like in the early 2000s too?
Late 2000s. Yeah.
Oh, later 2000s. Yeah.
Well, 2003, 2004.
It seems like it was AVP, Doremus, and then 1 and 9 once
Right.
like because they
by the airport.
Exactly. Because they ended up installing the speed bumps in AVP.
Yeah, they actually dug holes in 19
Yeah.
strips across.
So that's Newark, New Jersey's effort to stop the street racing. But as we all know, if you're in the know, it still goes down in Newark.
Well, you move around, and that's basically what it is. It's gonna move around. Like I said, the next generation is not gonna care. And they're gonna want to do it, and they're gonna want to live that life because they either hear it from somebody, let's say like me, or an OG out there, and they want to do it. That's basically the way it is.
Exactly. But let it be known for everybody doing it now. This is where it started, and it was guys from the generation like Ralphy, and even before. I met people even who were telling me they were racing on AVP late 70s, early 80s, and to me, I wasn't even born yet. So to hear that, like, man, like that street is legendary. Hunts Point, you're saying, Fountain Ave, legendary streets. And for those who don't know, Jerry's Corner is out in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area. You ever been out there?
No, to Pennsylvania, no. Never went that far.
And that's the thing too. Like when it comes to street racing, like if you're racing Hunts Point, that's your street. You ain't really going to other states.
Yeah, you like to go where you feel comfortable. That's basically it. You create an niche, and then you gotta understand the street racer is a hustler. Some people take it as just street racing now, but in my days, I lived off of street racing. I would try to go out there and hustle. I'm gonna make that money. That's the way it was. I needed that money to survive. I wasn't working. So it's different ways of doing it now that we probably thought different. The guys now, maybe some guys think that way. They want to go out there and hustle, but mostly I think they do it for the hype now. They just want to be known. They want to be on the IG and.
There ain't no social media back when these streets were cracking, right?
Yeah, like nobody knew you. It is what it is.
And that was actually a better reason, or it was easier to make money back then because nobody, since social media is not around, if they're not coming to your garage and seeing what's really under the hood and whatnot, you could really just roll up to a street, like roll up to Hunts Point and be that notorious dude of.
Yeah, nobody.
We don't really know what this guy does or what's under what the car could really do.
Nobody knew your time. The first time I ever went to a track, I think it was in 1990, and it was Englishtown. To actually race. I used to go to Englishtown and see like the Super Chevy show and the NHRA National, stuff like that. That was about it. But really, we weren't even working on what they wouldn't welcome us into the tracks in those days. It was like, it's a rice burner, it's a piece of shit,
Right.
4-cylinder that we probably were running, when we started running at the tracks, we were running like 14s and we were happy. 14-1, that was fast, man.
And that's one thing for those watching. Ralphie's an import guy, so in the late 80s when it's mostly muscle cars racing, when you roll up with your import car, for you, it's easier to make money for you because these guys are just laughing, thinking they're gonna shit on you, but really, you're coming out to make some money.
Yeah, that's exactly the way it was. That's why I made so much money with that 300ZX. It was a street car, air conditioned. They would look at it and goes, "How fast can that go?" It can probably go 15s, 14s, and then they were surprised.
So, like, when you were going to Hunts Point a lot, how often were you out there? Like every night?
Hunts Point, we were there mostly on the weekends. But if we had like a certain meet, like we said there would be a race, then you'll go on another day. But mostly on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
And
usually in the weekend.
It seems like with all the streets, like if people really wanted to, just lock in a race on a Tuesday night, you could go to that street and do it. But if you're trying to like see a bunch of other races, you gotta hit it up Friday, Saturdays.
Correct.
Oh man! So once again, if you guys just tuning in, latest release with Eat Sleep Race. It's now available on eatsleeprace.com. OG street shirts, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the legend himself, Ralphy Estevez. And again, if you guys don't know, the story of Fast and Furious was based off of this article in Vibe magazine back in '98. And this is no lie. The Fast and Furious saga, the story was about Racer X himself. Why did they call you Racer X in that article?
That was the name that the writer Ken Lee came up with, and he came up with because he grew up seeing the actual Racer X cartoons. So he looked at me as that. But we took about 2 years to do that story.
You know what's crazy? So on that Facebook video, the one that's got a couple million views, I'm trying to remember the page so anyone who's watching could look it up. But guys, if you're on Facebook and you type in Fast and Furious history, it'll show up. So it has a picture of you and Ken Lee and says, this article written by Ken Lee for Vibe magazine was based off of the story of this New York street racer, Ralphy Estevez right here. So would you say a majority of what you told Ken was based off of what went down at Hunts Point?
Yeah, it was real street racing, and I actually took him to a real street racing spot. He got to go to Hunts Point because we did that story. We started making that story back in '96, late '95, early '96 was when we started. So we went around all the racing spots.
Is he a California dude that was coming out here? Or?
No, he's still a New York guy. He works for a tech company now, actually.
No way.
And
you were the first one that exposed him to street racing then?
Yeah, he didn't even know how to drive stick. I even taught him how to drive stick. So.
Wow.
It's a funny story, and that's on the Vibe did a reunion when I think 7 came out, and that the picture that you see on the article you said on Facebook is from the reunion actually.
So what made that guy Ken write this story about street racing if he didn't even know about cars? And how did he find you?
Okay, he was working for the Daily News as a writer, so they gave him a piece to write, and he wrote. He went to the Long Island Dragway, which was open, and we used to go there on Sundays to test some of our cars because it was closer than anything else, and there was hardly anybody there anyway, so we could test. And he actually went there and did a story. After that, Vibe gave him the opportunity to do a story or something, and he presented that as the story to do. And it's funny because it was going to be maybe like a half a page story, and then after he started gathering so much information and going around and seeing everything, and I mean, he even drove in cars with me, all that stuff. He got really excited, and it turned out to be a 4-page story.
But how did he find you? Like, all right, so street racing was happening already.
Yeah.
Out of everybody, how did he choose you?
I was street racing at the time still.
Oh, okay.
So he came into the scene and started asking people, and my name kept popping up, Ralphy, but he never seen me. And he would come to the street racing, and he wouldn't see me. So my name always kept popping up until he actually came to a shop that I was working at that time. It was called Speed and Sound. And he came in there and met me with Javier.
But what was it about you? Why was everybody saying your name? Like, oh, I want to write an article about street racing. Why is everybody saying you got to see Ralphie and not them?
Well, I was the hot racer at the time, I guess. I didn't race to lose. Like I said, I would try to hustle people. So if I'm hustling, I'm not trying to lose money. I'm trying to make money.
So you're saying at Hunts Point, anyone who raced at Hunts Point back in the early 90s, late 80s, has heard of Ralphie before?
Yeah.
In the 300.
Yeah, a lot of people have heard. I can bet on that.
I can tell you this: ain't nobody was calling you Racer X. So what were they calling you back then?
No,
just Ralphie.
It was just Ralphie.
It's just Ralphie. So everybody's like, oh, if you want to talk about street racing, you got to see this asshole Ralphie because he's taking everybody's money.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
Well, it worked out because now they got the hottest series in Hollywood, and it's so crazy that, it was based off of a story that you told, based off of the real lifestyle that you lived, Hunts Point. And guys, right here, these are the landmarks. These are the OG. You know, this is where street racing in the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area. This is where it started. So the feedback that we're getting on the shirt and a lot of the comments, people are like, yo, you're missing the Hutch, you're missing Doremus, you're missing all these other streets. Like, yeah, we know they existed, but, you know, out of everything, these are the iconic spots. You know what? If you guys want it, let us know in a comment. We might do a round 2 of what you guys think are other legendary street racing spots.
You're going to have to do a round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5, because there's a lot of spots. And
we'll save those stories for another time.
Yeah, and everybody has his own spots,
So being that there were so many other spots in New York, I'm not going to say so many other, but that there were other spots in New York, why did you choose Hunts Point over the other spots?
It was the most happening place, and you want, you know, a lot of people all the time, and real street racers were there, and that's what you want to do. That's where you want to go. And like you said, we didn't have social media, so we have to go to the actual place and interchange words.
So that's the thing too. Like,
cell phones were just coming in also.
You had to print your photos back then. Yeah. And nobody's got, like, I've yet to meet people who have legit, like, really good pictures of what went down, like, who documented the racing from that era.
Oh, there's some people out there. There's some people that have.
We got to meet those people.
In social media, I seen people putting up pictures of the old Hunts Point and actually Fountain Avenue too.
Who else would you say are some notorious racers from that generation? If you had to, being that, you know, you were out there, who would you, like, if you had to say, like, top 3 guys from that generation? Like, oh,
Tito ran there. That's actually how I met Tito. I met Tito.
You gotta tell these people who Tito are. They don't know who Tito is.
Tito Porsche. The one who has to have the Porsche to do the wheelie. Everybody knows him now. So yeah, I met Tito actually. I used to have an RX-2. He used to have a Volkswagen Rabbit that was really fast. It was really fast, and he was beating everybody. And at that time, what you used to do is you used to come to the line and just park there until the next guy comes in, and it was just racing all night long. And that's one of the good things about Fountain Avenue and Hunts Point. That's the way it was. Yeah, they had big money races, but they have racing going all night long. Like, people just stand at the line, and whoever parks up next to them, they would just race for fun. So that's one of the good things of that area.
And who else? So Tito was somebody that people knew.
Yeah, there was a lot of guys. It's you know, since I'm old, it's tough to bring that memory back right now. But that Tito's one of the guys who come to mind to me, because we had a big rivalry. So that's one of the reasons why he come up to my head right off the top. But there's a lot of people. There was Rotten Top. Rotten Top was a Jamaican guy. He has a lot of pictures. That's a guy you might want to contact. He has a lot of pictures.
You got to put us in touch with him.
Yeah, he has a lot of pictures, and he still goes around. He's still around. There was a lot of guys that I actually look up to in those days, because I was coming into their world. So it's always like that with street racing. You come in and you start liking somebody, and then that's how you begin street racing.
That's where they say idols become rivals.
Yeah.
So it's like you look up to the Zuna street racing, and then your car eventually gets fast enough.
Yeah.
You lining up next to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you trying to end his. You trying to ruin his day.
Correct. That's the way it is. And the story, if you read the story, that's what happened to me. I had a guy that he was my idol, and then, you know, he ended up being racing him and beating him, and that's the way it works.
All right, guys. Once again, latest collab shirt we just released with Eat Sleep Race. It's now available on eatsleeprace.com. If you guys know anybody who knows about these streets, that's OG like Ralphy right here, or just wants to, you know, street racing now, but wants to let everybody know that they know the history of what they're doing, the shirts are available at eatsleeprace.com. Ralphie, we appreciate your time. And it sounds like we got to come back for a round 2, because we need a second version of these shirts. And you got to tell us more stories.
All right, I'll be here. Thank you.
All right.